Welcome to the Jake and Carissa show. We are a teen mom and Marine veteran, and together we combine spirituality and reality to unpack the best and latest in health, wealth, and relationships. We've made every mistake, so you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
We're bringing you practical information that can be applied to everyday life and relationships. I'm here with Carissa Ferns, my bride-to-be, very soon.
That's
And
me.
Carissa, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, hi. Thank you, honey. That was a good job. Well, you said it, teen mom. That's my story. So I got pregnant when I was 16 years old, and I now have a 21-year-old daughter who's also engaged. So it's kind of magical that you and I are engaged the same time that my daughter is engaged. It's pretty cool. And I was thinking about what I wanted to say today on the podcast with you. And I don't even know if you know, but have you seen my Instagram post that I made today?
Not the one you made today.
Yeah. So it's to you. It says like to my fiance. And in the caption, I was writing just the difference about my life now in comparison to what my life was like before you and how much harder oh, show that cup. That's great. Show them that cup.
Oh, yes. Um,
So where'd you get that?
I got this from your daughter, from Michaela, and it says, "Look at you." This is a mug. It says, "Look at you, landing my mom and getting me as a bonus. Happy Father's Day. Thanks for putting up with my mom."
That's true. It's so true. But yeah, so in my Instagram post, I was just posting about like the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And that's something too that I want to bring to our listeners in our podcast is just what it's like to start to for me at least, females, when you start to come out of that fight or flight and you start to come out of that trauma way of being, of just living, and you start to embody your divine femininity, it's truly difficult at first. It's challenging. It's really a practice. As you know, I resisted it for the first year of our relationship. It was just I didn't even resist it purposely or intentionally. I just resisted it because it was so new and it felt so foreign and it felt so good that I didn't really understand how to live in my divine femininity. And so my post today was kind of talking about that, that you guys are built so different than us. You guys are stronger and you're bigger and you're here to protect and you're here to give, and I can even see the difference in you when I allow you to give to me. And I don't mean giving as like take advantage of, or us women don't need to give as well, because it really is both. um but anyways, now I'm getting sidetracked because I'm not talking about my story. But today in my post, it was just about how much better life is with a man, particularly the right man. It's just, I used to live, when my daughter was born, she had a couple things that I needed to take care of surgery wise with her. And life was really challenging. I graduated high school a year early, started college right away. The first 5 years of her life was like just magnificent. She was kind of like my higher power for a number of years.
Mm.
But I didn't really know who I was. I didn't have an opportunity to tap into my own identity, or what I liked or what I didn't like, or who I liked or who I didn't like. And life was just about surviving. It was just about making enough money to keep a roof over our heads, to keep her happy. I was fortunate. I did have support with my grandparents. Um, but it was just gnarly. It was gnarly being a single mom. It was so crazy. I ended up becoming an alcoholic. As you know, we met in AA. For those of you that don't know, Jake and I, we are an AA romance, which is kind of cool. And I stayed in fight or flight for a really long time. And as my daughter aged, my trauma from my childhood seemed to correspond to the same age that she was. So like when she hit 6, that was really hard for me. That was my first panic attack at the age of 6 years old. I didn't know it at the time. I found out later through therapy. And then when she hit 10, there was another trauma in my life when I was 10. And then that started to come back. Memory started to come back. And then it got really bad when she started middle school. You know, she went to the same middle school. I live in the same town. She went to the same middle school that I went to. And I remember the day I brought her to middle school, the very first day. Actually, it wasn't the first day. It was the first orientation. It was like, I don't know, a week or two before. And memories that I had never even thought about in those 14 years of her life. Well, no, she wouldn't have been 14. She would have been about 12. Started to resurface, which was a trip. You know, you just think you're going along with life and things are pretty okay. And then, but boom, something happens. Something is different in your life, like your daughter going to middle school, the same middle school you went to. And then like a rush of old memories and a rush of feelings that I didn't know how to compartmentalize, feelings that I didn't know how to feel, feelings that I didn't know how to process. It was just absolutely wild. And that was when my alcoholism really, really, really took over. And I had been on and off prescription pills for a number of years. And I don't mean like opiates, you know, SSRIs and mood stabilizers. And I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So I was on gabapentin for pain, and fortunately, never got addicted to any type of opiates. Thank God, because I hear that's a pretty gnarly withdrawal. But I did start drinking wine at night, you know, to ease the anxiety and to fall asleep. And it created a terrible, terrible habit. And that habit turned into vodka. And then all of the unprocessed trauma and the unprocessed anger. Like I was angry. I was angry at my parents for things, you know, and I don't want to blame my parents at all on this podcast because they truly did the best they could with the tools they had at the time. But it's also true that there were things that I needed as a child that I did not get. And so all that started to come up as soon as my kid hit her teenage years. I almost reverted back to a teenager myself. It was pretty crazy. It was pretty gnarly. And it actually wasn't until plant medicine. I found a plant medicine. I had been in AA for about 10 years and I was still relapsing and I was still miserable and I couldn't get a hold of my anxiety. I had no ability to calm my nervous system. And it wasn't until I started using CBD, high amounts of CBD and low amounts of THC for anxiety and pain. And for those of you that don't know, CBD, the cannabinoid CBD, is excellent for anxiety. If you struggle with anxiety, you might not want to use THC. That could exacerbate it. It could make it worse. But the cannabinoid THC is great for pain. So what I did, because I was later on I found out it was actually not fibromyalgia, it was Lyme disease. So my pain level was very high, but so I used high amounts of CBD, low amounts of THC, and I told my sponsor in AA, I said, look, I've tried your way for about 10 years, but I'm going to try it this way. And that was very frowned upon in the AA community, but I was tired of going to jail and psych ward, so I thought I need to do something. So what I did was I trusted my intuition. And I came up with a plan. You know, I didn't want to use it addictively. I didn't want to abuse it. I did not want to be high every day. I really wanted to find who the fuck I was, and I wanted to be as sober as possible. And so I started using CBD and THC, and I slowly got off these prescription pills. I was honest with my, therapist. I had a sponsor at the time in AA, and I did a lot of research. Dr. Joe Dispenza was a very, very influential person, still is in my life as far as learning about the body and the brain's ability to heal. And I started to believe that I could heal. And that made the world a difference. I started to believe that I wasn't a victim to these diseases, these mental illnesses, these addictions. I started to believe that I could heal. And I didn't really believe it at first, but I started practicing new beliefs. And then I found microdosing. I found microdosing and I started microdosing a couple of days a week in conjunction with, the prescription pills. And I was on 6 different prescription pills before I was even 30. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? It was just wild. It got to the point where, go ahead.
That's quite a few, yeah. And
6.
how many are you on now?
0.
That's pretty
Today.
magnificent. Yeah.
Yeah. And just for anybody that might be listening, I want you to know that I did that really, really slowly. It took like it really took almost 5 years to get off everything entirely. So I did it really slow. I wasn't trying to do anything impulsive. I wasn't trying to harm my brain or my body in any capacity. I just, I knew, I knew that they were just treating my symptoms, that it wasn't treating the root cause of my PTSD or the OCD or bipolar tendencies, borderline tendencies, all of these things that we want to put all these labels on us. And really, in my opinion, all it is unresolved trauma. You have unresolved trauma, and it's going to come out in the funkiest of ways, whether it's a physical illness, an autoimmune illness, a mental illness. And then we have these health professionals that try to just kind of clump us in a category so that way they know how to best, serve us, best help us. And really, it's unresolved trauma. You got to go back and you got to feel those feelings that you weren't able to feel, and you got to be held and you got to be seen. And I think that's been the best part about plant medicine is just being able to so deeply cry and just release and just let that out and know that I'm okay, or that I'm going to be okay, that I might be uncomfortable, but that I'm not going to die. I'm just uncomfortable. Before, when I got uncomfortable, if I had a smidgen of anxiety, I literally thought I was going to die. I was like, oh, I'm dying. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. It's never going to end. And today I get anxious. I still get anxious. I'm a human. But I have the
So,
tools.
well, um, so for people who don't know you, obviously, like I do, um, help me understand. It's not like you're running around and like getting stoned or running around and
Mm.
doing psychedelics or plant medicine or anything like that, like regularly or routinely or on any kind of schedule or anything like that. Help me understand kind of a little bit more. Was it initially something that like you needed and then you've tapered off?
Mm-hmm.
What's
Yeah.
kind of that? How did that process kind of unfold? I know you said it, and for those of you who don't know, there's sometimes a little bit of a delay in these things, and so I'm doing my best to pick up everything that you said. So just
Okay. No, I'm glad you asked that, honey. It's a great question. So the way it unfolded is I was trying to get off alcohol. I was not even a daily drinker, but I would binge drink every time something big happened in my life. I would lose a job. I would lose a boyfriend. I would get a bad grade. I'd fail a test. Michaela's father and I would get into a fight. I wouldn't be able to pay rent. It was something like very emotionally charged, and I would have absolutely zero capacity to handle that anxiety. I later found out I'm a highly sensitive person, and I don't just that doesn't just mean I'm very sensitive. What it means is it's actually a trait of how I process information in my brain. So the world is a little bit more overstimulating for me than the next person. But I didn't know any of this when I was in my 20s and raising my daughter, like in the throes of motherhood. I had no idea. So something big would happen, and I wouldn't. I mean, I don't have parents, as you know, that I communicate with. So I had no ability to calm my nervous system. So I would drink. It started with wine, and then I graduated to vodka. Um, and to be honest, the alcohol did work for a number of years. It did. It would calm me down, and then I could cook dinner and do homework with my daughter, and eventually, study a little bit at night to graduate from college and get her to bed. And I never became the daily drinker. It was just for those big, big, big events. But what would happen is I would start to be so relaxed when I was drunk that then all of my problems would surface like that night. Like I'd be angry with what happened with me when I was like 6 years old and then 8 years old, or I'd remember something that happened with a parent or some another member in the family, and it was just stuff would come up. Then when my inhibitions were lowered, shit would come up. So I just started getting crazier and crazier. And then the problem was I would go to my physician, I'd go to my doctor, and I'd tell him, hey, I'm pretty moody. Like not just around my period. Like I'm pretty moody. I'm pretty angry, and I have trouble concentrating. It was incredible. Fortunately, healthcare isn't this bad anymore, as far as I know. But I remember at 22 years old going into my doctor. I'm in my last year of college. I'm sorry, I'm in I'm in my first year of college at Chapman. So I had finished my undergrad at Palomar. I'm sorry, I'd finished, not, they don't call it, I have an undergrad degree. What do they call it? I had finished my general education at the junior college.
Okay.
And I was in my first year at Chapman getting my BA. And I had moved a couple of times and I was under stress. And I go to my doctor and I'm like, yeah, I'm having a hard time concentrating. This man, he doesn't ask me a single question about diet, nutrition, how I'm sleeping, am I exercising, am I doing yoga, am I seeing the fucking sun? You know what I mean? Am I getting air? Like, no questions. He goes, "Oh, that's okay. Yeah, no, we'll just give you some Adderall." And I just thought, "Oh, well, okay. I don't think I'm ADHD. I don't know. It's never been an issue." So I just took it. And it was amazing. It was awesome. Cleaned like my whole house, fucking organized everything. Like anything that I had wanted done in the last couple of years, I got done that day. And so it started kind of an Adderall addiction. And then I would drink more so that I could still sleep at night. And so that created hypertension. So then I had a lot of pain in the years to come. I got breast implants when I was done nursing Michaela. Breast implants made me very, very, very sick. Very sick. I had them in for way too long. I actually just explanted 2 years ago at the time of this recording.
Congratulations.
But thank you, honey. So yeah, so then it was like, then I got autoimmune, right? And then I had another mental illness, and so they're just tacking on all of these issues. And I'm going to AA and I'm trying to get sober, and I'm a young little thing. I entered AA when I was 22 years old, and I got hit on by a lot of older men, a lot of older men. So then there was trauma within the community that I loved and trusted. I'm also not here to knock AA because it truly did help me for a period of time. I can truthfully say that AA helped me and it hurt me. That is my truth. But for me personally, when I hit 32 years old, I had relapsed again. And this time I missed my daughter's 15th birthday. And I was out of Adderall. I couldn't even take Adderall to get my ass out of bed to go to her birthday party. And she was livid. She was so angry, rightfully so. And that was enough for me to be interested and open into something other than big pharma and AA. And so I sat down at my computer and I Googled, I don't think it was holistic medicine. I think it was alternative. I just Googled alternative medicines. And I just started researching. I was so desperate that my mind was wide open. I was willing to be wrong about everything that I was doing, and I was just so open to whatever I needed to find. And thank God for that. In AA they call it the gift of desperation. I had that, and I was curious about alternative medicine, holistic medicine, chiropractic medicine, and that was when I found Dr. Joe Dispenza. That was when I found plant medicine. And the first one was cannabis. I'm like, what? People are getting high to get healthy? That doesn't make any sense. That's stupid. But I started studying the plant itself. I started studying the actual cannabinoids and how to use it. And if you're sitting there smoking pot every day, well, I don't think it's going to help you. One, it's still smoke in your lungs. Like I still use cannabis every single night. And it's actually something that I want to wean off of because I don't like the aspect of putting smoke in your lungs. But at the time, I was using it in the tincture form, in the oil form, and it legitimately worked for anxiety. I just couldn't believe it. And then the THC legitimately worked for the pain. It was incredible. I could not believe it. And so because that was so effective, and knowing that I was an alcoholic, I knew there was a chance for me to get addicted. So I'm like, well, definitely don't want to get addicted. And like I said, I wasn't a daily drinker, so a daily addiction I wasn't too concerned about. But at that point, I wanted to learn how to regulate. I wanted to learn how to be an adult. My daughter was now older. She wasn't nearly as dependent on me. Now she's in her teenage years. So now it's time. It's like, it's time. It's time to start reading. It's time to start researching. It's time to start like diving into some studies of how healing modalities could heal me. And so that was when I found microdosing, and I started studying neuroplasticity. and the brain's ability to grow new neural networks. I was like, my freaking dad is a physician. How am I just now learning that the body has the ability to heal? How am I just learning that my thoughts are making me sick? So if my thoughts can make me sick, then my thoughts can make me well. And that blew my mind. That absolutely blew my mind.
Boom.
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 Yeah, I remember the day. I mean, it was like, I remember the day I found Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I was just like, wait a second. Duh. What happens when you break a bone? You know, you might go to the doctor and the doctor sets the bone and he puts you in a cast, but you heal the bone. You heal the bone. Your body heals itself. You know, what happens when you get a scratch? You might need stitches. You might need some help. Western medicine is great for injury. It's great for that. You know, it's great for anything acute. It's great for acute care. It's terrible for chronic. But the body heals. And so I started studying the way I communicated to myself. And I was so beyond mean to myself that it was no wonder I became an alcoholic. It was no wonder I had anxiety. I talked so mean to me, to my own self, in my mind. And it was so automatic. It was so habitual that I wasn't even aware of it. I wasn't aware of it until I became aware.
Man, I hope a lot of people can resonate with that, or I mean, at least the people that can resonate with that, I hope they really attach to the hope and the idea that that does not need to continue to be their existence.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's been an incredible journey. You know, I love microdosing. I did start using cannabis daily, but I only used it at night. I kind of put myself on like my own little regimen that felt comfortable to me. And then I started microdosing. When I first started, it was 5 days a week because I was getting off the prescription pills. So what I did at first is I cut down my SSRI. I cut it down, I believe, in halves, and I took half for about a month, and then I cut that half into half. So I took a quarter for another month, and then I would stop taking it like one day, take a microdose instead, and then take my SSRI for another 3 days, then microdose again. I did that for about a month. And then I eventually just stopped the SSRI altogether, and I would microdose for 5 days. And because of neuroplasticity, I do not have to microdose 5 days a week. To be honest, I only microdose now maybe 5 days a month because of neuroplasticity. You know, when you start communicating better and kinder to yourself, those neurotransmitters, right, that neural wiring grows. And then all of the neural pathways that you're no longer using, like the pathways of, I'm a piece of shit, or, you know, maybe my daughter's life would be better if I wasn't here. Those actually, when they're no longer being used, when you are no longer thinking that way, every 90 days, the brain does a scan. It does a pruning and a scanning. So imagine all of a sudden, like, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, right? The brain is like scanning itself, and then it's pruning. It's going, oh, Carissa is no longer saying that she wants to die. So let's snip that away. Oh, Carissa is no longer saying she is unworthy of love. Let's snip that away. Oh, Carissa is no longer saying she needs alcohol to survive. Snip that away. Literally, every 90 days, it does this. So all you have to do is be positive. And I don't mean just positive, but, you know, start practicing these different ways of being, and the brain just snips that shit away. Like, bye. You know, same way a gardener would on a bed of roses. So I started doing that, and I started to heal. I started to get better. I started to be more positive. And in the spiritual community, I want to be real mindful too that there is something called toxic positivity. We don't want to avoid uncomfortable feelings. We don't want to avoid going in and feeling something that might need to be felt to be rewired. That's really, really important. But man, it works. You know, plant medicine worked for me. I have a deep reverence and deep respect for plant medicine.
Excellent. And would you say that everyone can benefit from plant medicine?
It's debatable, right? I want to say yes. I want to say, yeah, absolutely. Everybody can. How can they not? But here's the difference. We all have a brain. right? Every human that is walking, thinking, and being has a brain. Walking, thinking, and doing. They have a brain. The brain is being used. Can the brain benefit because of neuroplasticity? Yes. But that does not mean that that human, right, can handle the introspection. That doesn't mean that the human can handle maybe the uncomfortable things that they find out about themselves. And it doesn't mean that they have the willingness to change. So I guess the answer really would be no. You have to be at a place in your life where you are willing to possibly admit that you're a fucking asshole. And that's okay. You know, your life experience has made you who you are, and that's okay. But you got to be willing to forgive yourself. You got to be willing to love yourself. You have to at least believe that it's possible that one day you will believe that you're a good person and that you deserve love and that you deserve forgiveness.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah. Um, I do want to say, we have talked about this. It's not necessarily that we're promoting this in any way, but we are promoting that that everyone should do their research.
Yeah.
And there's research on Johns Hopkins University that's going on right now for people with, complex PTSD and so on, and where talk therapy hasn't worked and medication hasn't worked and so on. And they're
Mm-hmm.
really trying to find out how to help save some lives. I know in the veteran community, it's still they're still talking about 22 veterans committing suicide every day, and
Wow.
and while they do talk about us veterans, they really don't talk enough about everyone else, right? Like veterans do not hold we are not the only people in the world that have experienced trauma, and I think that a lot of us have been kind of, I don't know, poster people for trauma right now and trauma treatments, but a lot of ladies I know have experienced some real trauma at the hands of men, at the hands of family members, at the hands of each other, and so you know we've. I'm really happy that you've gone down the roads that you have, and so would you, for our listeners, would you say that you're bringing a message of hope, of
Oh,
change?
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Especially too, and you just kind of said it, especially the people who, I don't want to say like the rock bottom cases because that doesn't sound good, but if you've tried everything, if you are treatment resistant, if you've been on SSRIs now for 5 years and they're not working, there's a reason. If you've been on mood stabilizers for years and they're not working, if you have been in therapy I think if you've been in therapy for 1 year or more and it's not working, you got to do something else. Nobody deserves to suffer for that long, especially because plant medicine is so effective. And I'm talking, you guys, I'm not talking about going and eating 4 grams of mushroom and then going in the woods and partying, you know what I mean? Or having some MDMA and then going to the club. That is not what I am talking about. I am talking about taking it with someone who is trained, who, I don't know necessarily about a therapeutic setting, or I'm sorry, a clinical setting, but it does need to be therapeutic, right? You need to be with someone who has taken the medicine themselves and has already facilitated a very, very safe place, set and setting matter. Someone who's going to be with you, who's going to hold your hand, and laying down with a blindfold on without any distractions and going deep into the depths of the subconscious and realizing why you do the same shit over and over and over. There's a reason why. There's usually an underlying need that we just don't know how to meet. And that's why we have these shitty behaviors, over and over. Um, but even you, like since we've met, even you, babe, like let's hear a little bit of your story because you are a night and day different man from the moment we met to now.
Um, well, thank you very much. And this again is a nice introduction. You're going to hear a lot more about Carissa and I, because we will share our own stories, and we will share from a place of knowing through experience. Um, but yeah, you and I have both talked that we didn't know each other back in our former selves,
Yeah.
We didn't know each other in our previous identities, you know.
Thank God.
And you've told me, you might have said it during one of the kind of blips here, but you told me that during one of your experiences, you noticed how you were playing the victim.
Hmm.
Did you already
Yeah.
cover that?
No, 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 no. Well, I said the asshole part. But yeah, my first MDMA experience, again, it was in a very therapeutic setting. I had somebody with me that was trained, that knew the medicine, that understood the medicine, that knew what to expect. I had a blindfold on. And I just remember I took the blindfold off and I went to my backyard and I'm just kind of sitting there and I'm, a lot of introspection, right, with plant medicine. And I can like see my life almost as like a timeline in front of me. And I just had my hand, my face in my hand, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm an asshole. Oh my God. And I played the victim role manipulatively to serve me in many of my relationships, in many of them. Like, woe is me. I was a teen mom, so life's been harder for me. And even if that might be a little bit true, it's not a way to live, right? I wasn't living up to my potential, and I wasn't managing my relationships to the potential, because it was always like, well, if my feelings got hurt, and I'm a highly sensitive person, so my feelings can get hurt easily, but I would somehow put it on you instead of like, my feelings are hurt. Now I'm going to go and regulate myself, and you are going to have your opinion, and you are going to have your experience, and I'm going to have my opinion, and I'm going to have my experience, and we're both going to be okay. I never had that attitude before of like, no, we're both going to be okay. It was always like, well, you're doing this to me. Um, I think that was actually my daughter's biggest problem with me in her teenage years, where she was like, wait, I get it. Like, life's been hard for you. I get it, but like, grow up. And I really saw that on the MDMA. It was just so beyond eye opening. But the wonderful part is you feel so euphoric in your body that you can essentially hear whether someone's telling you these things, or if it's your own mind telling you these things about yourself that you don't really want to hear. You're okay hearing them. You're just like, oh my gosh, I'm an asshole, and this is why, because I've had this childhood, but childhood is now over. Childhood's over, and I don't want to keep carrying it with me as an adult. I want to close that chapter. I want it to be one chapter of my book. Allow me to close that and show up as an empowered woman versus showing up as a victim, you know, as a victimized woman. And complaining about the news, and complaining about this friend, and complaining about family, and complaining about this. And it's like, all those things are true, yes, but we don't have to live in it anymore. We don't have to live in that. So that's the most amazing thing that the plants have given me, is just that introspection and the ability to see my own shit with neutrality. Instead of seeing it with judgment and then feeling shame and guilt, I just saw it with neutrality of like, yeah, life's been really hard, and that's okay. I'm going to love you so much, and we're going to show up even better. And for me, it's been helping people. It has truly been serving people. It's been sharing my story authentically, even the really embarrassing things. And we're going to get into all of that. Like, Jake and I have an ability to be very vulnerable, because we know how important it is for other people to hear. So we're going to get into all that. But enough about me, babe. Now I want to hear about you.
Well, absolutely, yeah, and we will not be just so you know, we've got a lot of history, personal history, and things like that, and we're trying to be very careful to keep it focused about us, and not pointing fingers and things like that. But
Yeah.
in order to tell some of the stories, we may have to get into some things. Um, okay,
Can
you
I
want to go
just
about me
say
right
real
now?
quickly? Yeah, one
Yeah.
thing. I just itched my nose. Can you see that?
Okay. Yeah.
You see that beautiful ring you bought me?
Oh yes.
I just wanted a little bit of a bling bling on the camera here. Jake and I just
Yes.
recently got engaged, so I'm pretty obsessed with my new ring.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
so
Um,
now let's kind of switch, and
we can
I want to.
we you want to do this now, or do you want to end the episode so it's like a introduction to Carissa, and
Okay.
then we
All
can
right.
do
Let's do that.
and then we can do like Carissa's story
And then
and
switching on
Jake's
over to
story,
you.
and then we
Yeah.
can do 2 small ones, or do you want to do one really long one? Because we're at about 35 minutes.
I think that's
Let,
great. I don't think people last much longer than that,
let's
you
cut it,
know?
and then let's do me on another one.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. So we'll
Okay.
edit this part out, but let's try to like
Yeah.
kind of wrap up.
So everyone, this has been great getting to know a little bit about Carissa Ferns, and believe me, this is just not even scratching the surface. This is, I mean, she'll tell everybody this if you give her 20 minutes. She absolutely
That's true.
100% has redefined and stepped into a new identity with the help of some of these tools. But the first thing, I don't remember, I don't know if you remember, but if you go back, the first thing was she was absolutely desperate for a different way of living, because everything that she had been trying up to that point had been either A, not working, or B, even making it worse, and
Mm-hmm.
going into the doctors, and she just described her symptoms. And I'm going to say one more thing here. I'm going to bring you back to one more thing. She would describe her symptoms, and then they would give her a new pill, and then
Yeah,
she would
it was
describe
wild.
another symptom, and they would give her a new pill. And so she actually tested this theory one time. Just, what was it, a foot ache? You went in and kept complaining about your foot just to see if they'd give you another prescription.
Yeah, and they did.
And they did. Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
was
so at
wild.
that point, she's like,
Yeah,
well,
by
this is
then
just
I
crazy.
got
They're
kind of
just,
curious. I'm like, how many prescriptions would they put me on? Like, I'm not even 30. I don't eat gluten. I don't eat dairy. I do yoga. Like, I'm healthy as fuck. This doesn't make any sense. So I started getting kind of curious of like, are these doctors even trained? And my dad's a physician. They don't even take, I think they take one nutrition class. Like, it's a wild. It was so crazy. It was so crazy. And then real quick before we go, I do want to explain how I actually got off the SSRIs was I my daughter had a friend who came over who she was like 16 at the time, and she had just gotten put on an antidepressant. And I was asking her which one because I had been on some, and she told me which one, and she's like, yeah, my parents requested my psychiatrist to do the mouth swab to see what antidepressant, what SSRI my brain is most compatible with. And I was like, hold the phone. What are you talking about? What mouth swab? What do you mean? I've been on antidepressants for like 10 years. My psychiatrist never mentioned this. And she's like, well, yeah, the mouth swab. I'm like, what? So I Google it. I find out what it is. I tell my partner at the time what it is. And he goes, okay, ask your psychiatrist. So I book an appointment right away. I get in and I'm like, hi, I want the mouth swab. I tell her what it is. And she kind of played real coy. She's like, oh yeah, no, that's not effective. And I said, oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much for your opinion. I want that mouth swab. Like, I want it. And she told me it wasn't effective. She told me it wouldn't be good for me. She told me I don't need it. She said, what I'm on now is great. Meanwhile, I'm having like these crazy episodes, like anger spells that I never had when I wasn't on an SSRI. So I go home and I tell my partner, yeah, no, she wouldn't give it to me. And he's like, well, that's weird. All right, well, book another appointment, tell her to give it to you. If she doesn't, I'll go in with you. I book a second appointment about a month later, and I'm like, listen, it is really important to me to get this mouth swab. And I validated her, right? I was like, I hear your concerns. You don't think it's, effective. I would still like to be the judge of that. I still want it. She refused to give it to me. I come
that's
home,
called
I tell my
advocating for
partner, he goes,
yourself.
you book another appointment tomorrow and I'll go with you. We couldn't get in the very next day, but we got in like a week later. He comes with me. He says, ma'am, please give her this mouth swab. We've already heard your opinions. We know you don't think it works. That's totally fine. We still want it. She argued with my partner for maybe a minute before he kindly goes, listen, if you do not give my girlfriend, your patient, what she wants, I'm going to leave your office and hire her an attorney to sue you. This fucking woman, she bends over like this. She bends over her desk and pulls it out. It wasn't even like she had to order it. It wasn't like it was in the back room. She bent over. It was right there. It was wild. We looked at each other like, I'm sorry, is this happening? What just happened? Is this a glitch in the matrix? Like, it was freaky. She does the mouth swab, right? 2 months later, I don't even think it really took that long, but 2 months later, she calls me with a tone of voice that I had never, ever, ever heard her exhibit in like the 5, 6, 7 years I was with her. She's like, oh my God, like the funniest thing happened. You would not believe it. She was all of a sudden like some weird valley girl. It was fucking weird. She's like, this almost never, ever happens, but your brain is not compatible with any SSRIs, and I am taking you off immediately. And then she like offered like some other mood stabilizer or something. But at that point, I knew she was full of fucking shit. And I knew that I was just a walking wallet for her. Like I knew she was just pocketing off of all the prescriptions that she was putting me on. But it was freaky. It was freaky. And and just real quickly, I actually did not go off the SSRI immediately. What she meant by immediately was start tapering down immediately. So I did. I took about a week to get off. You do not want to just take it one day and then not the next. That is dangerous to do. So I want to be clear for people that maybe are going through the same situation I did. So I cut it in half and then cut it in quarters, and I was off of it in about a week, and I never went back on. And ever since then, I've never had one of those episodes ever. So they're diagnosing me bipolar, saying, "Oh, you have these episodes." Meanwhile, I was on SSRIs having those episodes. As soon as I got off, I never had one. Coincidence? You know? So
That's remarkable.
It's been gnarly. It's been a crazy experience. It really has. So
Yeah, well,
I
that's
trust the
remarkable,
plants and Mother Earth than I do the physicians.
yeah, it's remarkable, and it's worth talking about, because I don't think that enough people get enough airtime who have had those types of experiences. And so I don't know I would have to do some research to find out what percentage of people actually don't benefit from SSRIs. But the more that I'm learning, actually, that's actually not really what we should be doing. We should not be controlling the remaining amount of serotonin in our brain. And the books that I'm reading that are written by doctors are actually questioning that very hard. So,
Yeah.
Chris
It's
and I
just not
are,
a long-term solution. For acute care, let's say you go through a divorce or a death or, something major and your brain needs some help, 6 to 12 months. You know what I mean? They might work for like acute care. But once you're staying on him for years and years and years, no, I don't know if that's the solution. I really don't. I really don't. I don't think it's a solution to a chronic problem. I think it might be a temporary solution for an acute problem. So is my opinion and my
well,
ontological experience.
thank you very much for your vulnerability and your experience in opening up and letting us get to know you a little bit better. Again, this is
Thank
kind
you.
of an
You're
introduction
welcome.
into who Jake and Carissa are. This has been Carissa's portion. We thank you
You're
for
next.
tuning in. And believe me, this was just a portion of Carissa's story. We have a whole lot more to talk about
Oh yeah.
as we unpack all the latest in health, wealth, and relationships. If you're looking to help get closer connection with your partner, if you're looking to get yourself in a position where you can actually find the true romance in your life, maybe you're single, or maybe you're just getting out of a relationship and trying to figure out what you do or before you're getting into the next one, we have a lot of great insight for you, and cannot wait to share our take and our story on the world. So thank you very much, Carissa.
Thank you, honey. And thank you guys for listening.
And in case nobody has told you something that Carissa says over and over again, I'll let you say it.
And in case no one has told you they love you today, we love you.
That's right. Because if people can hate for no reason, then we can love for no reason.
Yeah.
And believe me, if I would have heard myself say this a couple of years ago, I would have kicked my own ass.
Yeah.
I would have been like, dude, oh my God, forget about it. Puke, gross, like whatever.
But it works.
Stay tuned, because there's a lot of great information coming that can literally change your life. So thank you very much.
All right, you guys. Bye. I actually have no idea.